Well, I left drama school, and I went into rep, first of all, which was weekly. They don't do it now, sadly. There's hardly anywhere for young actors to go. But you learn your craft. You know, you have to learn a different play every week. And, of course, you don't learn it because you're sitting on the beach, aren't you, or getting pissed in the pub. So come Wednesday, when there's the turnaround, so you start the new play on the Thursday, you're on the beach on the Wednesday, desperately trying to learn your lines. And it was my first job, so I was actually, I was an actress with small parts, but also assistant stage manager, which meant I had to make the tea and do all that stuff, do noises off and all the rest of it. And my first playbill, my first actual programme with my name printed in it, which I proudly went and got for my scrapbook, it said ASM, which is Assistant Stage Manager, Lifter Bellingham. But it was quite appropriate because I did a lot of lifting. But and of course, you know, we all want to do television. So my first telly I got by lying. They wanted a girl to play a hippie strumming the guitar. So they said to me, do you play the guitar? Oh, play the guitar. Oh, I play the guitar. And can you do a tune for us? Well, I haven't got a guitar here, but I'll do it on the night. Don't worry. And would you like me to write a little tune for the guitar? That would be marvellous. Full of bullshit, 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 bullshit. So I said to the boy who was playing the other beatnik, we were beatniks, can you play the guitar? Yes, he could. So I said, well, give me a couple of chords. So he taught me a couple of chords. And on the piano, actually, because had done music, it wasn't a complete lie, I wrote a little song. You know, sort of on the lines of Kumbaya, I did all that bollocks. So I'm in the studio, and Ronnie Fraser's there with this pint glass of water, and I said to this other beatnik, I said, amazing, look, he drinks ever such a lot of water, doesn't he? And everybody laughed, and somebody offered me a sip. It was neat vodka. First lesson, they're all drunk. Oh, God, it was, I mean, it really was. They were all drunk, and we'd start work at 10 and finish at 12:30 and go into the pub. So, of course, I tried to drink with them and fell over and rang my mother and said, I'm never going to be an actress because I can't drink like everybody else. I'm a failure. And then Ronnie Fraser rang my mother and said, hello, Mrs. Bellingham, it's Ronnie Fraser here. I want to invite your daughter to dinner in Paris. And my mum said, don't be so ridiculous. How shall you get home? But so I moved on, and there I am. But every time I was on the telly, of course, when I saw it on camera, you saw my nose first, and then I followed it in to shot. And when I was doing all Creatures Great and Small with the 50s bras, those pinnacle jobbies, it would be my tits followed by my nose into shot. And I was terribly conscious of this nose, and I'd always try to turn my head so I'd get there. And, you know, it was awful. And then I got to General Hospital, Fat Nurse Hilda Price, here we go again. So they made me padding from there to there, which I wore with my nurse's uniform, in flat white shoes, white stockings, little hat, marvellous. And away I went. And it was the first daytime soap. You know, it was a big success. And for 6 months I did that. She had all the jokes, and it was great. And then the minute they decided that perhaps Hilda should go on a diet, she won a competition and went on a diet, I lost the padding. Then, of course, I had hundreds of letters from people. How did you lose so much weight? Oh, it was terrible. I had to write back. I did. I wrote back to every single person saying, I'm really sorry, but it's hanging in the wardrobe on a hanger. But it was all going swimmingly, really. And I worked, you know, unbeknownst, you know, all these people said I wasn't going to work until I was 40. But I'd had to put myself into this role, this mode, this comedy thing of kind of taking the mickey out of myself. And that's sort of gone on most of my life, really, and got
now,
me into
this is where you met your first husband?
Yes.
Of 10?
The first husband. Well, again, I'm doing comedy, and he's a young, out-of-work producer who's bought the rights to these books, confessions books. So we're chatting about this. And he was very charming, very handsome, and I thought, God, producer, you know, going to make me a star. Anyway, between us, we put the films together, and I, in fact, was the one that discovered Robin Asquith because he was doing a Kit Kat commercial at the time, and I said to Greg, he'd be brilliant as the boy Timmy Lee, because you know, it was the sort of carry-on films with sex, and because again it was the 70s, it was smutty, you know, that's the kind of humour, is the Benny Hill thing really, so, and a lot of nudity. So, And in the midst of all this, I started going out with Greg, and it was all going. We didn't live together, and it was fine for the first 6 months. And then he started working very hard, putting the first film together, Confessions of a Driving Instructor, and no, Confessions of a Window Cleaner. And I didn't see much of him. And my mum said to me, "Is everything all right?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, we don't have much of a sex life. He's never very interested. She said, and I said, "But I expect he's tired." And she said, "Well, maybe, Lynda, he's, the kind of person he is. He's got another woman." I said, "Well, I don't think so. He's always on the phone asking me where I am and what I'm doing." Well, of course, how naive can you be? The irony of all this, bless his heart, he's dead now, and he was the one that suggested I write the book. And I said to him, "But what am I going to say about you, Greg?" And he said, "Well, I know you'll be loyal." So I'm not being very loyal, but on the other hand, it has to be said, because I don't think I'd have got involved with somebody like this if I hadn't had so little self-worth. So basically, we didn't have a sex life. Against the background of which, there he is, ironically, casting all these women in these films who used to send him 10x8 blow-up pictures of themselves naked, saying all producers' requirements will be met. And boy, did he ask for the requirements to be met. So it all came out, and I realised that when he wasn't seeing me, there was just queues of women. And I sort of confronted Greg, and I said, "Look, we can't do this. It's not going to work." And he said, "Look, I want to marry you." And he talked to my parents about it. We went to see a psychiatrist who said, he was in his 30s then, I was about 27, so I wasn't, young, naive young. He said, that he didn't hold out much hope, but Greg was adamant that he was going to do something about it. And the night that he proposed to me, he made love to me. So I thought, well, at least he's trying. We got married. But of course, it was just as the film, the Confessions of a Window Cleaner, was about to open, and unbeknownst to me, the whole wedding became a kind of press junket for the film. And my parents had sat me down, and I'd always talk to them about everything. And Mum said, "But how are you going to have children if you're not having any sex?" And I said, "Oh, Mum, I can cope with that. I want to act. I don't really want children. And I love Greg, and I'll make it all right." And the way you do. And on my wedding day, Dad said to me, "You don't have to go through with this." And I said, "In a way, I do. If it's going to go wrong, I'll know that I've given it 100%. And at the wedding party, the reception, it was all held at EMI Studios. It was so glamorous. And we had a big cake, and out of it came Windsor Davis and Donna Estelle singing Whispering Grass. And we're doing the shake hand, and everybody's coming past. Mum's here, and Dad, and Greg. And every other person in this lineup was some bird, blonde with big tits, who'd say things to my mum and dad like, "Well, I only hope he's made the right decision because he was with me last Tuesday." I mean, horrible. I mean, he slept with virtually every single woman in those films. And my wedding night, I turned round to him in this amazing hotel in Paris and said, "Well, here I am." And he went, "Nah, not tonight, darling. We'll just watch Match of the Day, eh?" And he never laid a hand on me after that.
So basically,
I had a non-consummated
marriage.
So all my fears about myself, being attractive, having a big nose, being a Maori or Jewish, or I'd lie there night after night thinking, yes, I am the ugliest woman in the world. And there I was doing this bloody film, right? And of course, I'm in the back of this car with Robin Asquith in one scene, and I don't have to take my clothes off, right? And she was very upper class, my character, frightfully jolly. And my husband of 3 weeks or so came on the set and said, "Right, I think we should have Bellingham flashing her tits in this scene." I said, "But Greg, it doesn't say anything in the script." He said, "Well, I'm the producer. If I say you're going to get your tits out, you get your tits out. Everybody else does." And he went away, and I'm left with the crew and everybody waiting. And Robin was fantastic, and he said, don't worry, we'll work some business out," which we did. He kissed me, and my tit popped out. We left it, and I quickly popped it back in again. I went, "Oh God, it's terribly rude," and forgot no more about it. It was so quick, hardly saw it. 10 years later, when I got the Oxo commercial, the Daily Star, or one of those papers, blew up my left tit on the front page. "Lynda puts the X in Oxo." So there I am, disastrous marriage, everything disastrous. And I went, and I was doing a show with an actress called Anna Barry, who'd had a terrible car accident and lost half her face, including her eye. And she was explaining to me one day how she'd gone to this incredible plastic surgeon who does burns and real major stuff, who'd replaced her face, basically. It was honestly absolutely amazing. And I said, I don't suppose he'd look at my nose, would he? And she said, well, talk to him. I said, but he'll think I'm very vain. And it's a bit sort of trivial. She said, go and talk to him. So I'm sat down in front of this amazing man, Dr. Roy Sanders, telling him about my nose and how it follows too big and blah-de-blah. And he measured it and he said, yeah, no. And of course, while I'm talking, it all comes out, the way it does when you talk to a doctor or somebody's told him about my marriage and how I was, it was non-consummated and he was having it off with all these other women and blah, blah, blah. And the doctor went, hang on. He said, look, Lynda, you're absolutely right. Your nose is too big and I will shorten it for you. But it will not help your sex life. So I'm going to have it done. And I said, how much will it cost? This was 1975. And he said, it'll be £1,000 plus 50 quid for the anaesthetist fee and 2 nights in a clinic. That's another 50 quid. So I said, lovely. And he said, and what I will ask you to do is sit up after you've had the operation all night, and the blood then drains and you don't get terrible, bruising and all the rest of it. So I sat there, it was agony, absolute agony, because I couldn't complain, could I? But I sat there for those 2 nights. Anyway, believe it or not, I was on camera 10 days later. It was so exciting, I can't tell you. And weirdly, I've got this part playing Timothy West's mistress in a play for today called Cottage to Let. Well, I'd never so far in my career played a mistress. I'd be the downtrodden wife or I'd be the joke. But here I was, playing the mistress with my new nose. And every time a camera came up, I was... It was unbelievable. I can't tell you. It gave me such confidence. And then I waited for the bill, which didn't arrive. So I rang Anna Barry and I said, look, I'm really embarrassed. The bill hasn't arrived. And she said, look, Roy thought that you may need that money because you're obviously not going to stay with your husband. So he wants you to keep the money, which was just extraordinary. And I thanked her and I thought, well, I'll probably never see him again. Unbeknownst to me, because 8 years later, 6 weeks into my second marriage, my nose was halfway across my face.